All right, so our Sunday school lesson was all about the idea of forgiveness, and it was all about obedience. And today's message is about there are blessings on the other side. All right, so I'm going to start off by telling you about it's an event in Samaria. All right, it's found in 2 Kings chapter 6. And this is Ben-Hadad, and we mentioned him a little bit on Wednesday night. Ben-Hadad had sieged Samaria. And he had sieged it so much that he had cut them off from basically everything else, and they're in a great famine. Famine was so extreme that you could, if you wanted to buy a donkey's head, which it cost 2 pounds of silver. Could you imagine just buying a donkey's head for 2 pounds of silver? And then it said that if you wanted to buy dove's dung, which was a flour, it took a whole day's wage to be able to pay for it. All right. The famine was intense. All right. So it was so intense. Here's the king of Israel. Here he is walking along the wall, and he sees a woman down below, and she hollers out to him. And basically, to give it in my own words, he says, "What am I supposed to do for you? What can I do? The only thing that can save us now would be God." Well, his question to her is, "What is it? What do you need?" And she's crying out saying, "Well, here's what has happened. I have made a deal with the lady across the way, and the deal was, if I boil my son today, we can eat today, and if we boil your son tomorrow, we can eat tomorrow." She said, "Well, we boiled my son, and we ate my son, but she has hidden her son." Now, is everybody devastated on that story? Because I'm really reading those words and thinking, how? But that's the extremeness of the famine. And so the king, here he is in the same moment, and he rents his clothing, saying, "What am I to do?" And what does he do? He blames Elisha the prophet, saying this is all Elisha's fault. And so he goes off to try to capture Elisha. Well, to give a long story short, when he makes it to Elisha, Elisha reveals to him, here's what is going to happen. He says, tomorrow, at this time, tomorrow, what's going to be sold? He said 2 measures of barley is going to be sold for a shekel. He says 1 measure of fine flour will be sold for a shekel. Now, could you imagine the story of the event saying the famine's going to be ended tomorrow? Everything's going to be perfect. Everything is going to be fine. How many of us would be standing there saying, yeah. Well, one man beside of the king here, he does that. He laughs at this moment. He says, well, God would have to open the windows of heaven for that to happen. Now, this isn't part of my message, but I'll give you the whole story. After Elisha heard those words, Elisha looks at this man and he says, well, you will see it, but you will not taste it. Well, just like Elisha had said, and I'll go past where I'm going to teach. After all this famine had ended, the man is getting ready to go out to get to all that food, all that blessing, and all the other people realize it too. And he is trampled to death before he's able to get to the food. He saw it, but he didn't get to taste it. Now, that gives you the opening to there are blessings on the other side. All right, so here it is. If you're with me, we're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 3 through 9. Imagine the famine. Imagine how hard it would be for us to survive in the middle of a famine. What if you were a leper? What if you were a leper in the middle of a famine? Remember, a leper can't go out and work. He can't work with anybody else. He is dependent upon somebody else to give you daily rations. How many of us believe that if you're in the middle of a place that eats their own kids, they're going to save you a ration of food? It would stink to be a leper, wouldn't it? All right, so here it is. 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 3 through 9. It says, and there were 4 leprous men at the entering of the gate. And they said one to another, why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we will die there. And if we sit still here,